Alright, so you've heard of floods, right? Like, water everywhere, boats, maybe a few lost socks. But what if I told you about a city that got absolutely drowned in dessert? Yeah, I'm talking about a legit, honest-to-God flood of sticky, sweet, delicious molasses. We're winding the clock back to Boston, Massachusetts, January 15, 1919. The world was just kinda getting back to normal after World War I. People were living their lives, doing their thing, totally unaware that the city was about to get a sticky, sweet surprise. Now, for anyone wondering, what even is molasses? It's basically a thick, dark, syrupy byproduct of refining sugarcane into sugar. Think super concentrated, sticky sweet goo. Like the stuff you put in gingerbread, but way more intense. So, why was there enough molasses to flood a city? Well, it was all thanks to the Purity Distilling Company. They had this massive storage tank, right in the north end of Boston, full of the stuff. They used it to make industrial alcohol, and also, rum. Good times. And when I say massive, I mean massive. We're talking a tank 50 feet tall and 90 feet in diameter. It held something like 2.3 million gallons of molasses. That's enough to fill about 5 Olympic-sized swimming pools. Imagine that much goo. Now, this tank wasn't exactly built like Fort Knox. People had actually complained about it leaking pretty badly for a while. Locals would even grab buckets and collect the molasses that seeped out. Free dessert, right? Kinda, but also, a giant red flag. The morning of January 15, 1919, was weirdly warm for Boston in winter. The temperature had climbed into the 40s Fahrenheit. This might sound minor, but the warmer weather actually caused the molasses inside the tank to expand and ferment, building up pressure. So, picture this, it's lunchtime, about 12:30 p.m. People are going about their day, minding their business. And then, boom! A sound like a cannon going off, or a massive explosion. The Purity Distilling tank just ripped apart. Like a giant soda can popping. What happened next was utterly insane. A 25-foot tall wave of molasses, traveling at an estimated 35 miles per hour, burst out from where the tank once stood. 35 miles an hour. That's faster than most of us drive in the city. This wasn't just some gentle sugary ripple. This was a viscous, destructive tsunami of pure, unadulterated goo. It was a massive, brown, sticky wall of death barreling down the street, engulfing everything in its path. Just absolutely wild. The force of this molasses wave was incredible. It literally ripped an elevated train support column from its foundation, crushed buildings, and swept whole structures off their foundations. A nearby fire station was basically wiped out immediately. People were just chilling, eating lunch, walking home, and suddenly, they were engulfed. Imagine going for a stroll and suddenly a building-sized wave of syrup just smashes into you. There was no warning, no time to react. Pure, instant chaos. There were even kids playing near the tank, enjoying the warm weather. Some were playing with a pushcart. They stood absolutely no chance. The wave just swallowed them whole, along with everything else in its path. Absolutely devastating. The fire station, Engine Company 31, located right next door, took a direct hit. The building itself was shifted off its foundation, and the engine was pushed across the street. Firefighters were trapped, swimming in the sticky mess. It wasn't just people. Horses, pulling wagons, were instantly caught. They drowned in the thick, heavy molasses, unable to move their legs through the dense goo. It was a pretty awful scene, both for the humans and the animals. The molasses, once it settled, became even more treacherous. It was about 2 to 3 feet deep in some areas, but incredibly dense and sticky. Moving through it was like trying to wade through quicksand mixed with superglue. Imagine the panic. People who survived the initial wave were now stuck, confused, screaming for help. What was this stuff? Was it some kind of new weapon? There was so much chaos, people just didn't understand what had happened. Emergency services, firefighters, police, even the Navy, rushed to the scene. But getting through the molasses was a nightmare. Horses used for ambulances couldn't pull through the sticky muck. Rescuers had to literally wade in. And then there was the smell. Oh, the smell. A giant, overpowering, sickly sweet aroma of molasses hung over the entire neighborhood. It was so potent, people said you could still smell it decades later on hot summer days. By the time the initial chaos subsided, the grim reality set in. People were injured, some seriously. And tragically, people had died. Drowned, crushed, or suffocated in the thick, sweet deluge. The cleanup would be a monstrous task. This was just the immediate aftermath. The story of the Boston Molasses flood gets even crazier, from the bizarre rescue efforts to the massive lawsuit that followed. But that, my friends, is a story for part 2. Stay sticky.